Hey guys, my name is Jacqueline and you're here at my brand new YouTube channel called Trellis and Trails Homestead. I've gotten a lot of requests from friends and others about doing some beginner canning videos, so that's what we're going to do today. Got some peppers here. We're going to make some sloppy joe sauce and a black bean soup. I'm going to separate the videos into two in case you only want to see like one or the other. So first thing we're gonna do is chop up some veggies and get them roasted before we get everything canned up. So for this sloppy joe sauce recipe, I'm using the recipe from the Ball Canning book, or this is actually from the website. I like to print my recipes off if I'm not using the book, just so all the instructions are right in front of me. I have easy access to them. I can see everything that I need without having to jump back to the phone, especially if I have dirty hands, you know. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to chop up some peppers here and some onions, get those roasted for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll mix everything together and get it canned up. If you happen to hear my cat meowing in the background, she does not love when I'm in the kitchen. She wants me to hang out with her all day long, so she might be yelling here in a second. You can definitely use your food processor for this process. The finely chopping, I feel like that would be a lot easier. Sometimes I just don't think to get the food processor out. Every time I do, I'm always like, oh, I should do this all the time because this makes life a lot easier, but I tend to just chop everything by hand. All right, I changed my mind. I am gonna use the food processor. I'm actually just gonna put them in my Ninja blender. And get them diced, not blended, just diced, because I feel like that'll be much faster and much easier to get them in small pieces. Let's chop the rest of these up and we'll add them to the blender as well. And you obviously don't have to chop them as small as I am to put them in the blender, but I'm just gonna go ahead, since I had chopped the red one first, I'm just gonna go ahead and chop the rest up into dices, and then we'll let the blender do the rest. So I've gotten a lot of comments and requests from friends to do some beginner canning videos. I have been canning for about 2 years now and have experimented with all sorts of things. We have a pretty regular stash of things that we enjoy to eat, and those are the things that I make the most of. But I do experiment with new recipes here and there. Both of these recipes today are actually new recipes, so I'm excited to try those. But canning is just not so much of a concept anymore. People used to do it all the time, of course, back when they needed to have like a stock of food in their pantry at all times, or when access to the grocery store was limited. Or just access to food in general is limited. Of course, I'm canning a lot more in the summertime when I'm using my garden harvest to preserve that. I do it a lot of different ways. If I'm not canning the vegetables and the food, sometimes I dehydrate things. We eat a lot of things fresh. I'll give things to friends. I freeze a lot of things as well, but something about having some extra jars on your pantry shelf is just really satisfying. So these peppers I did not grow in my garden because we're in January right now. So I did get these from the store. In fact, pretty much all of these ingredients are store-bought ingredients. Look at that. There's a pepper inside of a pepper. And chop that one up too. So once we get these all diced up, we'll dice up the onion, add those together to the baking sheet, and go ahead and roast those up for a little bit. So again, back to like beginner canning. I had no idea what I was doing when it came to canning. I didn't grow up learning how to can. Nobody in my family does this. I don't know a lot of people in general close to me that do this. So I did a lot of research. I do watch a lot of homesteaders on YouTube. So when I was doing my research, I was very intimidated by canning, especially pressure canning. I think I just thought that it's easy to mess up and you can, you know, make yourself or whoever is eating it sick, and that's definitely not what I want to do. But then once you get familiar with the process and do make sure that you're, you know, canning safely, and I always follow recipes because I'm just more comfortable doing that, then it's not so bad. I do have an electric pressure canner, a Presto digital pressure canner, because again, the whole pressure canning process intimidates me, or did intimidate me, and using like a pressure canner on the stove seemed really difficult. One sec. Let me get these diced up real quick. So again, we just want finely diced. So I'm gonna try not to blend them and just dice them instead. Did get a little bit blended in the bottom, but I think that's actually great because it'll roast a little faster that way. And yeah, I like the small pieces. They may not all be completely uniform pieces, but that's okay. We don't mind that. I'll link the ball canning recipe that I'm using in the description below so that you can refer back to that. But basically, for this recipe, I'm doubling it. One recipe, it says that it makes 4 pints. So I'm gonna double it to make 8 pints. Sloppy Joe sauce is actually something we use kind of regularly. But of course, with canned Sloppy Joe sauce, you get a lot of extra preservatives and things like that. So I'm excited to have this homemade with a lot less ingredients and less preservatives for sure. So for 4 pints, it says to use 2 red peppers and 2 green bell peppers. So like I said, we're doubling it. We're adding 4 of each color, 4 reds and 4 greens. And then same for the onion in a bit. 2 onions, it says 2 large onions for one recipe. We're doubling it, so we're gonna do 4 large onions and dice those up as well. All right, I got the onion all diced up too. You guys didn't see me film that because I'm literally crying. The onion was so strong. Have you seen that meme on Instagram that has like the cat that's like tearing up and it says, "Why is the air so spicy?" That's how I feel right now. So we're gonna get this in the oven, get it roasted up for, it says 20 minutes. I think I'm gonna do it a little longer. It's a little bit watery because I ended up just putting everything in the blender. So we'll give it a little more time. I'm just gonna show you guys too. I save all of my onion scraps, most of my veggie scraps actually, I save in a freezer bag and just keep it in the freezer until I make veggie broth or some sort of broth with it. I might actually keep some of these peppers too. I don't usually put a whole lot of peppers in it, but I think I'll add a few to the bag. Mostly onions, garlic, herbs, carrots, other vegetable scraps. That's kind of what I keep in there. So we'll just seal this up and put it back in the freezer for when I make broth. While those veggies are roasting, I'm just gonna get my pint jars washed up. They're pretty clean, but I'm just gonna rinse them out and have them ready for when we're ready to start jarring things up. Okay, so I have the Presto digital electric pressure canner. I really love this one because in addition to pressure canning, you can also water bath can instead of using like a pot of boiling water on the stove. This does it all for you. So we're gonna go ahead and heat up our jars. I have our jars in here. This one is just sitting a little weird, but it's okay. This is just to heat them up. So I have my canner half full of water, and then the jars are filled half full of water as well. And of course, we're not like sealing them or anything yet. We're just heating the jars up because you always want to put warm food in warm jars so you don't break your jars. So we're going to do the boiling water can. We're just going to select that. And then the recipe says to do it for 20 minutes, can it for 20 minutes. So you go ahead and set the temperature now, or the timer now, so that once the jars are ready, you can just go through the next prompts and it's already good to go, ready for you. So 20 is what the recipe says. I live at altitude. I'm at about 7,000 feet. So I always add 15 extra minutes due to that. So we'll do 35. Then we'll just go to the next menu. And as you see, it says insert jars. We've already done that. And then warm. So we're gonna go ahead and put our lid on here. Close the valve here. And then it's gonna warm. It takes about 20 minutes to warm. By that time, our recipe will be done and we'll be able to get it jarred up and ready. All right, guys, as you can see, we have our onion and pepper mixture here. So we're just gonna start adding all of our other ingredients to it. The recipe says to go ahead and stir in the tomato paste until it starts to thicken. So let's go ahead and add in our tomato paste, tomato sauce, and our other ingredients. I've already gotten most of them kind of measured out, but it calls for a half a cup of tomato paste per 4 pints, and like I said, we're doubling it. So this is a 12-ounce can. So we'll just add a little less than the full can for a cup. That should be good. And the rest of that I'll actually toss in the freezer and save for something else. So it says to cook, stirring often until the tomato paste thickens. I'm gonna go ahead and get our tomato sauce prepared. Tomato sauce is gonna be 4 cups for one recipe, so 8 cups total. Smells so good in here. Something about peppers and onion and garlic simmering and roasting, so good. And if you have home canned tomato sauce, then you can obviously use that too. I just don't have any of that right now because I used all of my tomatoes to make pizza sauce this year. And I didn't have an abundance of tomatoes, so I just didn't have any extra. So this is 4 cups. Let's stir this tomato paste in, see if we're ready for the sauce. Our canner beeped off, and when it beeps, it tells you it's warm, it's ready for you to fill the jars. The great thing about this is it'll stay warm until you're ready to fill the jars, so there's no pressure, no rush to get them filled in a certain amount of time. Okay, I think we're about ready to add our tomato sauce. As you can see, it's getting pretty thick in there with the tomato paste. So go ahead and add our sauce and our other ingredients. So I've got the 4 ounces of sauce here. We're gonna add another 4 ounces. Ooh. Sorry, 4 cups, not ounces. Add another 4 cups. 1 more can. And that's 4 cups exactly. So just so you know, I used 2 of the 29-ounce cans. And this is just the like Safeway brand. And then 1 of the 8-ounce cans. And that was the perfect amount. So we'll add those 4 cups in as well. We're gonna add 4 teaspoons of salt per one recipe. So it'll be 8 teaspoons of salt. I already have this measured out. So 8 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of ground pepper. So we're gonna do 4. A cup of apple cider vinegar, so we'll do 2 cups for that. I'm going to put my Dijon in here first because I have that in my 1 cup measuring cup, and I'm going to go ahead and get that out so I can use that for the vinegar. So half a cup of Dijon mustard per recipe, so we're going to add a full cup here. And then we'll toss in our 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, at least 5% acidity. You always want 5% acidity for your vinegars. That's just the appropriate amount for canning recipes to keep the acid levels where they need to be. So 2 cups for that. And then a 1/4 cup firmly packed brown sugar. So I have a 1/2 cup here. I've already measured out as well. I have it on like medium to low heat. And if you need to add any more like pepper or garlic or whatever to taste, once you open the jar and add it to your ground beef or whatever you're making, then you can do that then. I actually am going to add a little bit of garlic powder. I know that's not in the recipe, but I just like to add garlic powder to everything, and then I'll probably add more when I open the can. So just toss in some of that. There we go. Like I said, I do follow recipes, especially for things that I haven't made before, but as far as like spices and other simple ingredients like that, if you add or substitute, it's not really a problem. So bring to a boil, turn it down and we'll simmer it. So while our sloppy joe sauce is simmering, I'm going to take our jars out and empty the water out of each one so that we can get them ready to fill. So we're just gonna empty this water out. I sometimes just empty it right in here because you're gonna have to fill this with more water about an inch or so above the jars once you have them filled in order to water bath can it safely. So I just like to empty it in here, then I don't have to add more boiling water later. And then I'm just gonna set them here and get them ready to get jarred up. We're gonna go ahead and fill our jars. So we're gonna fill up to a 1/2 inch of headspace. So I'll let this simmer for about 5 or so minutes to thicken. So we're just gonna add these to the jars. And I'm using pint jars. I can only fit 8 regular mouth pint jars in my canner at one time for water bath canning. So this is like the perfect amount. So we're gonna leave a 1/2 inch of headspace, which is about, this is a little warm, about that much. I usually go to like the middle line there on the rim. So we'll just continue filling these up. That one got a little full. We'll spoon some of that one out and add it to another jar. So I have this plastic knife that I like to use. We're just gonna go in and kind of just swirl it through the jar here. I just like to make sure all the bubbles are out. That changes your headspace if there's like a bunch of bubbles in there. So like I said, we're gonna keep it a little over a 1/2 inch anyways headspace, but just to make sure there's not a lot of air in your jars. So we're gonna go through and just debubble all of them. If you see that your headspace decreases quite a bit once you go through and get all the air out of the jars, you can always add more to equal the amount of headspace that you need. We're gonna wipe our rims. So I just use some white vinegar. I just put it on a towel, and we're just gonna go around and wipe all of the rims. You don't want any of that sauce sitting on the rim because once you put your lid on there, it's not gonna it's not going to seal correctly. So then you will have a seal failure, and you'll have to either stick that jar in the fridge or the freezer, or go ahead and eat it. You won't be able to safely put that on your pantry shelf. So we're just going to make sure they're all super clean. No residue on the edges, even around the outside of the rim too, because your lid is going to seal around that, and sometimes that can even cause a lid failure if it's not on correctly. So just want to make sure we're all clean here. And just be careful, because these jars are obviously really hot coming out of the canner, and hot when you add your boiling food to it as well. So I have already washed my lids and rims, so let's go ahead and add those on there. I'm using the ball lids today. That's just what I have handy. When I'm washing them, I'll just go ahead and make sure that there's no like dents or imperfections in the lid at all, especially around the edges, because if so, you don't want to put that on your jar, because that definitely can cause a seal failure. So I check those while I'm washing them just to make sure they're all good. And these were, I think only one time I've had a seal failure, and I think it was me just not cleaning the jar well enough. So we're gonna put our lids on now. You want these finger tight. So basically pop it on there, and I hold the jar and just until it's just tight to where you can easily open it. If it's too tight before you put it in the canner, then you'll definitely have some siphoning, and your food will leak out of your jar, especially sauces and more liquidy foods. So fingertip tight is what they say. So you want your water level to be an inch above the jars. Only when you're water bath canning. Don't do that if you're pressure canning. So the water level needs to be an inch above, and I usually just kind of measure it with like a knife or whatever I have. It looks like it's maybe about 3/4 of an inch, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more water to it. You can add, they say to add boiling water. My water is already super hot, and just by adding a little bit more, it's not gonna change the temperature of the water that much. So I'm just gonna get a regular cup and just add a little bit more water to it. So I would say that's more like an inch. All right, so after that, we're gonna go ahead and put our lid on. As you can see, 8 regular mouth pints fit in there perfectly. So we'll go ahead and close this up. Put our gasket down, make sure that that is locked in place, and no regulator on because we're water bath canning. When we get to the beans, I'll show you the process for pressure canning, because that's the opposite of this, so we'll do that then. I just tried the rest of the sauce, and it is really good. If anything, I feel like you can taste the vinegar quite a bit, but I think once it's mixed in with meat, like the meat, ground beef or whatever you're using, it'll be perfect. So I don't know that I'll add any extra seasonings to it when I go to cook it. I think the salt and pepper ratio is actually really great, but the flavor is really good. And the best part is that it doesn't have all that extra stuff, preservatives, unnecessary things in it. It's like all just normal, natural ingredients. Also, if I'm sticking stuff in the fridge or freezer to use later, I don't use the like canning lids just because I don't want to waste them. I keep all of my used canning lids unless there's a problem with it, like it got dented or messed up during opening. You can kind of see, these are brand new ones, you can kind of see the little bubble there. Those are new ones, those haven't been used yet. I really love these. I have these plastic lids that I got from Amazon. This one is a little yellow on the inside just from like pickled things, but I like to use these. Just cover it up, stick it in the fridge, and then you just have a plastic lid instead of a metal one. So our canner is all done. As you can see, it says cool and it has a 5-minute timer. I usually just wait the 5 minutes or close to it for the steam to release before I open it. So I give it a minute to cool down, and then we'll take our jars out and see how they look. Here is our leftover tomato paste. I just like to flatten it out so it thaws quickly. We're just going to toss this into the freezer for next time we need it. Alright, so we're at about 2 minutes left for cooling for our Sloppy Joe sauce. I'm going to go ahead and open it. I usually use a towel to open it. So let's go ahead and open this up. We're going to unlock our valve here. And then just be super careful because usually it leaks some water from the lid. Look at that. So we'll get these out of here, put them on our towel. I usually set my towel on top of my placemat and have it here. And then overnight when I want them to cool, I just slide this whole thing out of the way. So let's get our jars out. One by one, we're gonna use our jar lifter. Try not to tilt them. I do tilt them a little bit just because I like to get some of the water off the top. And now it's beeping saying it's done. Let's see. So that's how you know it's safe to open. Also, we can just go ahead and turn this off with the X. So let's get the rest of these out of here. And sometimes you can see them still bubbling up close. So we're gonna set all these here. All right, and there we are with our Sloppy Joe sauce. I'm really excited to try this. I mean, I did try it already and it was delicious, but I'm excited to have it on some ground beef and some buns and not buy Sloppy Joe sauce from the store anymore. So I call this a huge success. I'm really excited about it. And this is 8 more pints that we're adding to our canning pantry. So yeah, first ever video. Like, subscribe, send all your friends, tell them about my channel. I'm excited to make more videos like this for you guys. So let me know how you like it. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.